reason to risk it. Now G2, they took a gamble in game 2 and they left the Malzahar open and available. They're not going to give it up this time. Even though ROCCAT lost lane, it was still Wadid who was able to help find the picks and set up the team for success in so many of those fights. Tahm Kench taken off the board as well.
Now I wonder if it's going to be the Graves first pick or the Zyra, because I feel like that Zyra has been pretty impactful for the side of G2 throughout this series, but Maxlore, he's feeling pretty confident. The question is, if you're G2 eSports, do you look to change up junglers, or do you once again go for the ringer? Because again, the thing we really have to emphasize is that G2, they fully controlled the early game in game 2. This was not them having a bad draft or anything. Sure, it was a difficult to play draft with the full damage playstyle. They succeeded in game 1, but they just got caught unaware in the mid-game of game 2. The pick power of ROCCAT was so potent that G2 were not prepared for it. And a small lead turned into a big lead, and then ROCCAT, they just ran away with the game.
And we have to remember, as the Ezreal is locked in, the most terrifying pick on the side of ROCCAT in that previous game was the Fizz, and it has not been banned out here yet. And the question is, are ROCCAT comfortable enough to pick it up? Now, of course, Ezreal, Karma locked in, 2 picks that may have an easier time escaping the fish. ROCCAT thinking carefully about what they want in G2. Kind of a shift away from what we've seen so far. So much has been about, you know, locking in the early jungler, but they're taking their time this time around.
But I feel like by locking in the Ezreal and the Karma, 1, you're guaranteeing a strong bottom lane for G2, and 2, Zven is really good at Ezreal. Like, really good. Like, there is a reason why Korea loves Ezreal so much, and it's because of his fantastic playmaking potential, how well he scales into the late game. And when you give this champion to a player like Zven, he can do wonders with it. And it's just, to me, saying, G2, okay, the gloves are off, let's go. It's time to go hardball.
I mean, they better be, but while Zven is picking up a meta champion and making it more than most people are able to access, ROCCAT picking up some unique picks, particular to them. Betsy gets his Swain, and Hjarnan laying down the gauntlet, gonna pick up the Kalista for himself.
And fascinating that PerkZ getting himself a very early mid lane pick. They're expecting this Swain to be in the mid lane, but remember that you can flex it up to the top. There is always that opportunity for ROCCAT to have a winning matchup by sending Swain up there because of how naturally well he does into tanks. But there's also the risk of the Fizz being sent into the Swain as well for the side of G2. We have seen Expect pick up that Fizz for themselves. So there's a lot of question marks still left in the trap. But the one thing that we do know for certain is that PerkZ, he's on an assassin. And this is something that he made his name for when he first joined the LCS.
Such a solid pick for him overall, and while we thought it might be dead and gone, it's been making a resurgence recently. Multiple different builds in the hands of multiple different players, whether it's the Proto Belt Lich Bane or the standard full AP to find success. Multiple players.
Or a Gunblade.
Or a Gunblade, yes, true. Of course, G2 have to consider carefully what they're going to pick up here. Fizz up and available. Maybe they want to try their hand on it. We'll get the luxury of the final counter pick. Can't imagine it'll be given to the jungler.
You have to lock in a jungle now if you're G2. It makes no sense to pick up your top laner because then you're just giving a lot of freedom over to the side of ROCCAT. And Trick, he is moving away from the Rengar. He's going for the Playmaker. Look at all this early game power from G2. They have such dominant power in the bottom half of the map. LeBlanc, while yes, after her nerfs, was certainly weaker during the laning phase, but she is still great at being able to find picks early on in the map, with fantastic roaming power, along with her great dueling power simply because of the sheer raw numbers that she has at early levels.
And we look at it too, and it's Ezreal, right? We know that Ezreal's a champion who maybe falls behind in lane because of the tier, but in those early levels, he still outputs so much damage before that first back. Now, Nautilus locked in on the side of ROCCAT. They have to round out their composition here. Can they pick something that will not reveal the nature of that Swain as a flex pick? What will they round it out with? What will G2 find back for Expect on the top side of the map?
Well, with Kalista and Thresh being taken off the board, I feel like you need some kind of engage tool with ROCCAT. We did see it earlier on in the day.
Oh, wow.
And now we're seeing it once again.
This is an intense composition. The Fates call into the Alistar, the Nautilus top as well, but G2, they fire back with some moves of their own, and it is absolute lane dominance here on the side of G2. They've got the Karma for the early lane advantage on the bottom side, the LeBlanc in the mid lane, the Fizz with Ignite on the top side, ready to burn down that bird in the mid lane if he gets a chance.
Oh man, G2, I feel like that they have drafted a composition which is all about getting an early lead and snowballing it. They do have decent scaling with both the Fizz and the Ezreal, but when you look at Lee Sin, the pushing power that they have down in the bottom lane, the fact that LeBlanc can freely roam around the map and look to get picks, this feels like a far cry and away from what we saw at the beginning of the split from G2, where they were more about the mid to late game, where they were more focused about scaling and decision making. They are all about the early game, and they are all about sending a message to ROCCAT.
And why shouldn't they be? They've dominated every early game. They have crushed ROCCAT in the laning phase, in CS, in kills. It's the mid game where ROCCAT found a chance to come back. Can they balance out that early game?
Oh, this is going to be a good one. I honestly was not expecting a game 3. I thought that G2 had it under lock and key after their great early game in game 2. But here we are, this is it.
Hashtag ROC win or hashtag G2 win. Where do your loyalties lie? Twitter at LOL eSports is the place to let us know. Tensions mount for both squads.
The good luck, have fun has been issued from the teams. They're ready, they're hyped.
Both team comps lined up, ready and leaving the base. Players' focus and determination on their face, because here it is time for game 3. Nothing left to hold back for either of these squads. Final matches that they will play.
This is it. No more games after this. G2 and ROCCAT, their final opponents. This is where it all started for both of them. G2 were able to get themselves the clean 2-0 over ROCCAT upon the first week of the LCS, and now it all concludes here. ROCCAT have made significant growth in that time period, but so have G2. And now it all culminates down into this. You have the early game powerhouse comp. We've already talked a lot about it for G2, but for ROCCAT, they're more about the scaling. They're more about the mid-game team fighting. We saw them draft a similar sort of composition in game 1, but G2 was so good at kiting and baiting them back and preventing ROCCAT from really getting the full-on 5v5s that they struggled to really net any control over the game. But now ROCCAT, they're going to try once again. Betsy on his fabled Swain. They are looking to try and net themselves a series win over G2.
Just a reminder from the graphic on the bottom of the screen. They win here, they are ahead of Fnatic. Fnatic then, if they lose to Misfits, are out of playoff contention. But if Fnatic can win, very good spot to take it. Almost guaranteed. ROCCAT win here. It's the challenge issued to Fnatic. Can you find a win? Can you move back to top team status in your final weeks? If not getting your shot at the playoffs. But for now, the series at hand and early game. Hashtag Wadid things.
This is my lane now. They're just trying to get the early push. Getting the early level 2 gives you a lot of power with the Alistar and Kalista combo. Very good at setting up engages, as you can imagine. Also, in the event that Wadid gets in some trouble, he can just disengage. He's not in too much danger, thanks to the Fate's Call that you do have. Just look at the poke coming out from the bottom lane of G2.
ROC went very heavily in their favor. That's the fan support they were looking for. Got a lot of loyal attendees here in the house.
The level 2.
Yeah, but the level 2 from Maxlore as well. Mithy's knocked back into the wall. In goes the red buff. Mithy's knocked up. Can they keep the ball rolling? He's healed. Are they going to get it? That's first blood for ROCCAT. Zven is next, but he leaps out to safety. Now the LeBlanc is on the way in. PerkZ desperate to get something back. What is he going to get? It's Maxlore, and Trick is here as well. What else can they do? PerkZ next to be taken down. Trick needs to find one more. He's probably going to find Wadid, but Hjarnan now running his way to safety. He still has flash, and it's the 2 for 2 in the end.
This is not a bad start at all for either teams. The biggest issue that G2 is going to struggle with is PerkZ. He just used his flash, he just used his teleport, and they went even. Look at Betsy, he's now level 3. He's gotten this free push in the mid, but Trick, he's looking for Hjarnan.
Rinse and repeat, he wants to get something. Flash comes out, kick goes wide, nice sidestep, but Hjarnan gonna have to back off.
I feel like that was a bit of an overstay from Hjarnan. Didn't respect the possibility of the loop around from Trick. It will cost him a lot. So let's just have a look. Look at Hjarnan and Wadid. They are trying so desperately to get the level 2. They know that Zven and Mithy will go in once they hit that mark, and Maxlore looks to take advantage of it, going Raptors into reds. immediately down to the bottom lane, results in them getting that kill down onto Mithy, but the TP in from LeBlanc. They just buy time, they're just waiting. Stall things out so they can get all these Ren stacks down and get the kill down onto PerkZ. And at this point, sure, it's a 2v2, but look at the cost that was invested from the side of G2 in order to get themselves that even trade.
Oh no, but here comes Trick. Mithy's fine for now. Hjarnan has to back off, has to play safe. Wadid's next auto, not even gonna stun. Hjarnan way too aggressive there on that trade. Takes a ton of damage. You want the mid lane. Ooh, nice read from Betsy. Wins out on that trade, but is burning through his mana all too quickly.
And given that PerkZ was sent bottom lane so early on, haven't really had a chance to talk much about this mid lane matchup, especially now that PerkZ will actually be behind, given that his TP bottom lane. Now, just think about how differently it could have been. If PerkZ was able to get a kill down bottom and then could just swiftly rotate back up to the mid, or even just get some farm down in the bottom lane, it wouldn't have been all that bad. They would have been fairly even on experience. Whatever PerkZ lost in terms of farm, he'll get back from the kill that he was able to get. But because of how long he spent dead in the early game, he's now sitting at a level behind Betsy. He's not going to get the most optimal back. And it's going to allow Betsy to have a lot more of a push in lane. Every time PerkZ tries to aggress onto him, he can always use that never move to catch him as he dashes back. And if he doesn't dash back, then the laser bird just hits him in the face while he's in close range to Betsy. So it's not a terrible matchup for the Swain. He can definitely win out on it, especially when you've been able to get this early XP advantage thanks to the TP down bottom.
Additionally, it's not just the mid lane that's feeling pretty comfortable, the bottom lane as well. Every game in this series, that's game 1 and game 2, massive deficits for Hjarnan and Wadid. They picked a melee champion. We thought it was sure to happen again, but they find the early aggression. And G2 look to find some of that for themselves on the top side. Phaxi, no flash available. Sidestep. Maybe still enough damage. They're running in. Phaxi, what can you do? Trick, have you overstayed? Nope. Backs off.
Now Phaxi, an individual that had a fantastic Game 2 performance and really I feel was the player of that game. He was the reason why ROCCAT were able to come back. This game he is playing a tank, but I'm just so impressed with what Phaxi has been able to do. These are just some of his Game 2 stats. And I think it's just really worth talking about his growth as a player because no one knew who he was when he joined the LCS. No one had really much insight into what he was like as a player, how much of an impact he would have, and he struggled consistently throughout the season. But now, with the change in meta, with the freedom that his team has been giving him to play more carries, we are seeing a completely different player in the top lane for ROCCAT.
Such a massive improvement. Well, for now, ROCCAT's trying to show us the depth of what they can accomplish here because they've taken him away from the more carry role. Put him at a 12 CS deficit. It's not where he wanted to be, but for the bot lane, priority on this Kalista has worked out well for them. 59 to 55 in the CS department. Neither one of them has backed yet. PerkZ locked up, Betsy committing, going in. Decent amount of damage, but Trick is on the way as well. Betsy just going to have to back off.
But you can see the trade pattern in the mid lane, now that Betsy's level 6. If PerkZ ever gets rooted up, it's so difficult for him to be able to trade back. And, ooh, bottom lane.
Going in, Zven has to flash to safety. Good damage, Ignite goes down as well.
And this all stems from that early trading down the bottom half of the map. Zven having to use his flash there. This is the first time this series that we have seen Zven and Mithy fall behind Hjarnan and Wadid. They were so confident in their ability to win out in the early game that they went for a very early rotation of the Ezreal and the Karma, and you would consider this being fairly safe. We're going to have time for that as the trade happens up top.
Oh, expects going in. He wants revenge for the solo kill Phaxi got earlier. But Phaxi buys time. He backs off, and he's safe for now. He'll be up and available if he wants to make it back to that lane.
I expect going with the Ignite in lane as well will give him a lot more kill threat than perhaps Phaxi would have had in Game 2. But for the time being, Phaxi is making his way through the laning phase, not suffering too much, only at a slight CS differential.
Opts to TP back to the top side, despite the wave not being pushed towards him. Maybe hoping to break a freeze set up by Expect. Maxlore controlling the top side of the jungle as well. ROCCAT leaving their bot lane to be for now. Although finally Hjarnan finds the opportunity to back. We'll get the Cutlass as well as the Berserker's Greaves. And Zven, he has the power of the Sheen, but pretty big deficit he puts himself in. Now we watch the fight in the mid lane. Trick on the way in. Wadid as here as well. Kick goes wide. Not at all what they wanted. It's a slow burn from Swain, but no one's going to drop.
You know, small thing, but I don't actually think Trick has hit a Q this game. That's not necessarily his fault. There have been a lot of good sidesteps, but it's an important skill to land if you are playing Lee Sin. And so far, Drick hasn't quite been able to have the same sort of early game impact that I imagine he would have wanted. Regardless of the fact that ROCCAT are going even, this is great for their composition. Remember, they are very much about the mid to late game. If you're the Swain, you want to get the Rod of Ages early on, perhaps transition into a Zhonya's second, or maybe he may go for an early Abyssal. Definitely expect some early magic resistance to really negate the impact that this LeBlanc can have. And Betsy, I feel like there is high expectations that he can also move into a side lane up against Expect, depending on how the laning phase continues to go for him. He's already had a pretty good start, has a 10 CS advantage already. And you can see now the working, or the makings of his Rod of Ages well on its way. Interesting that he actually goes for the blasting one first, though.
Maybe not too worried about the mana sustain since he has recently picked up that blue buff, hoping to find another opportunity to back for the Catalyst. May have been the stronger purchase.
It's mainly because he knows he's trading a lot in lane. He'd rather just have the additional AP boost to better trade back against the LeBlanc, rather than just get that extra bit of health and sustain. So definitely a confident purchase is what you can say for sure.
Trick spotted out by the little spooky ghost there, as well as the Scryer's Bloom now. Vision battle continues. Perks and Betsy poking back and forth. Neither team quite pulling the trigger yet, although a lot of aggressive trading.
Okay, so one thing I think is really worth highlighting that I feel like I in particular haven't made a big deal of is Hjarnan is 2-0. Like, picking Kalista into Zven, I think, is already a ballsy move, especially given the dominance that he's had throughout this series. But the fact that he's now leading over the bottom lane of G2, who have been consistently dominant, it's just, it has to be such a big confidence booster for Hjarnan. He must be feeling so good right now because they're the ones pushing onto Zven and Mithy. They're the ones that are in control of this lane, and that goes against completely what we have seen from the bottom lane throughout this series so far.
And now they're just going to set their sights on the Mountain Dragon as well. They're in such a solid spot to keep contesting these objectives. Kalista, just about absolute objective control is Zven. A little damage onto Maxlore, a little extra damage onto the Dragon as well. Spear stack up, not quite the right calculation. They will get it in the end. So solid early start here for ROCCAT. Gold, though, still slightly in the favor of G2. Majority of that from Expect on the top side of the map.
Yep. Going for the double Dark Seal build gives him a little bit more sustain. We saw it from Singed early on in the split. Synergizes nicely with the Corrupting Potion.
To be fair, that was like 4 Dark Seals, though. Very rarely just 2. Betsy flashing to safety. Nice respect. In comes Expect. Betsy probably going to go down here. Yes, definitely. Kick back. All too easy. And look at that, Vedius. Trick lands a Q and just makes it look good for the team.
Easy kill for G2. Able to very quickly collapse onto Betsy, and this is what they really need to do for Perks. On this LeBlanc, it's very much about making sure that you have priority over your lane, and you have the freedom to roam around the map. Help assist, Expect, get another kill up in the top side, maybe help Zven get back into the bottom lane. And now Expect, he's going for a 1v1 top.
Expect taking a lot of damage there, but Phaxi, that's so much burn coming in from the empowered proc. Now leaping, run into safety, Expect moving forward. You can hear him cheering in the audience. Ignite goes down. Where's the Titan's Wrath? Not enough. Solo kill for the G2 top laner.
Now it's Expect doing work on the 4-foot man with a pole. He's not only able to get a kill down into mid lane onto Betsy, he then swiftly transitioned that into a kill up top. Really good stuff from Expect in the early game, and perhaps he can be the Phaxi of G2, as we saw from Game 2 between ROCCAT and G2. That was a lot of twos.
Very true. Not going to kill the ward there as he backs. We'll know it's there as well. But this is something we've seen more from Expect. Stepping up, allowing the carry potential to be on him, no longer being that guy who TPs lates to fight, and occasionally wins lane as Aurelia. And while we've seen great development from Phaxi, it's amazing development from Expect as well.
So now the focus for ROCCAT is this tier 1 tower in the bottom lane. Remember that ROCCAT have been consistently pushing onto it, and with Zven still hanging around, he has to be careful of the dive.
Indeed, going forward. Betsy here for the backup. The chain CC potential is massive, but Perkz off to the side. CC goes down, goes wide in the end. Perkz not going to take the risk, leaps back just to lay down a bit of poke. The G2 positioning, hoping to pick off a member of ROCCAT as they rotate between the lanes.
first tower goes in favor of ROCCAT. And what they really need to do now is switch the lanes up, because this is going to keep happening to Phaxi.
Oh no. Phaxi has no flash. Expect he's going to back off. Does give him the respect in the end. There's a TP up for Phaxi, but he's not going to be able to use it offensively. He may just have to use it to get right back to that lane. Mithy now headed top as well. G2 have found the weak point of ROCCAT this time around, and they're looking to exploit it.
But now you can move the weak point away from the strong point of G2. Send Hjarnan and Wadid up into the Fizz lane, make sure that he can't be as dominant, and then you can start knocking on the doors of that tier 1 tower in the top lane. You also have good control over the top half of the map, so you can look to take away this Rift Tower buff from the Fizz as well, which you really do not want to give to him, considering how strong he really is now. PerkZ.
Backing off, Vedius. May not be able to commit to the full one-on-one, but can make it out on his terms just about any time. No bloodshed drop. PerkZ still with the defensive itemization. Negatron Cloak comes out in the early game. And still waiting on that Rod of Ages on the side of Betsy. For ROCCAT, they're taking a chance to take control of the top side vision. Fizz reassigned back to the bottom lane, going to try to make Phaxi's life a living hell. No opportunity quite yet.
A movement round to the mid lane. Remember how great Graves is at sieging these towers. 5-man ROCCAT actually looking to take this tower down. Not very much wave clear on the side of G2.
Expect has TP, he's not going to use it. That's big for them, but even then, even with the 2 towers to 0, they're still only 600 gold ahead.
Still, very good map movement from ROCCAT though. They pushed in top lane, the bottom lane was pushed in well past the river because Expect was still making the rotation down to the bottom half of the map. They knew that PerkZ wouldn't have the wave clear to stop a 5-man siege, and they took down what should be the hardest tower to take of the game, at least within the first 15 to 20 minutes. So, good stuff from ROCCAT, but looks like G2 are trying to answer now.
Decent damage onto the tower, TP in. G2 will indeed get that tower back, Vedius. Now pulling back into the gold lead, although it is slight. A much closer game than anyone would have predicted here in Game 3. We expected the explosive early game from G2. We did not necessarily expect it from ROCCAT, but they've been showing up. They've been fighting back with blows of their own, at least on the bottom side. But it does not get easier as this Fizz just continues to get more items as that Triforce gets completed.
But now ROCCAT playing the standard macro game. Well, we've taken the other tier 1 towers, so let's take the next one. Zven, he goes back to base after already taking that top tower. He wants to spend his gold. Here's a big window for ROCCAT to take down the final tower, so this should net them the gold lead at last. Even with a 2-tower advantage, it's a very small lead. But for the time being, things are looking pretty promising for ROCCAT. The thing is, for G2 now, they're going to start setting up this 1-3-1, which, for the time being, is pretty good for them because Expect should be able to outduel anyone on the side of ROCCAT at this point in the game. The question is, can PerkZ? While he is 2-1-1, he hasn't had the best performances, and we've seen that Betsy is consistently winning out on these trades.
Not quite about dueling right yet, though, because there are no members to ROCCAT to respond to this bottom side push, and that means Expect is going to grab this tower. And the gold shifts back once again. It's just this dance between the 2 teams, each one trading objectives. And now the Cloud Drake's on the table. G2's in a position to contest, and maybe we will see our first fight.
Very tense. Remember that right now, G2 probably don't want to really force a fight, especially with the Blade of the Ruin King already completed for Hjarnan. No Trinity Force on Zven, but there is a Trinity Force on Expect, so there are strong members on both sides. It looks like G2, they're just going to concede it for now. Ooh, can we see a teleport?
They're coming in, TP on the backside from Expect. The stage is set for the fight. Wadid looks to knock the jungler out. ROCCAT, they secure the Cloud Drake. What else can they find? Lots of damage being laid forward. ROCCAT going forward. Maxlore in trouble. Wadid backing out. Betsy on the front lines. Not going to lock anybody up. And Fizz is on the backside. Maybe looking to get a little bit more damage down. Wadid blocks the fish in the end. Decent damage down, but the Unbreakable will keeping him healthy for now. Wadid will be the sacrificial lamb as ROCCAT looks on the retreat. Now have to pull back, now have to be safe. G2, will they go for more?
Well, they have 5 members. They're looking to siege onto the mid tower, but that is a very small wave that Betsy will very swiftly take care of. So ROCCAT, they get themselves the dragon, but G2 find themselves a successful fight. Being able to get a good flank like that from Expect is exactly the way in which G2 want to be playing these fights. Notice how many resources were burned from the side of Betsy as they just engaged onto one side of the flank. That's often what you want to try and do in this setup. But even though ROCCAT get themselves the Dragon, the fact that Expect is able to get this Rift Herald is actually going to be really big for him moving into the side lane as we approach the mid game.
So frustrating to deal with. A little bit faster, a little bit of damage reduction, a little bit of extra damage as well. Nautilus didn't have a hard enough time in the 1v1. It's only going to get harder from here, but so here now is the fight. You
can see the TP is actually pretty far away, so what ROCCAT want to do is just engage onto this 3-man unit. Phaxi, unfortunately, is a little far away, and G2 read the engage from Hjarnan and Wadid pretty well. Now, Wadid positions in a way that try and zones Expect away, making him the focus, but look at how well G2 are just kiting back, making it difficult for ROCCAT to really find the fight that they want. And this is exactly what we saw from G2 in Game 1. Very rarely were ROCCAT able to find a successful fight simply because of how well G2 were baiting, kiting backwards, utilizing the range and kiting power that they had to prevent ROCCAT from playing the way in which they wanted.
Well, it's very similar. Well, I'll have to hold that thought because Expect and Betsy are looking for the fight. Betsy slowly losing the skirmish there. They're backing off. They're giving respect to the opposite side. And Vedius, it's the same weave in and out kind of team fighting that we saw from ROCCAT in Game 2 that won them the game. Those final fights, dipping and ducking in and out of the equalizer to find access to the back line to shut down Zven on that Ashe. But they don't have that luxury anymore. He's on that Ezreal. That pick has the mobility necessary. ROCCAT moving forward here as G2 look to find an engage.
Now look at not Mithy, look at PerkZ. He's sitting in the bottom lane, he has the TP. G2 have enough wave clear for the time being in the mid lane to stop any kind of push. This is going to force ROCCAT to respond. Phaxi has his teleport up as well. Very likely that he gets sent to the bottom lane to deal with this wave. But it will deny ROCCAT from getting any kind of good push. This will enable G2 now to move around the Vision. This will enable G2 to move around the Baron to set up Vision for that objective, which now becomes a point of contention for both these teams.
Yeah, it would have been right either way. Move around the Vision, move around the Baron.
They're going to move around.
Definitely, Vedius. That will definitely happen.
Yep.
For now, Zven continues to push in, has that coal slowly stacking up. We'll be happy to have a little bit of extra gold as he is very quickly approaching that 2-item breakpoint for Ezreal. Trinity Force and the Moramana. It's a quiet map now, Vedius. We've gone from lots of early skirmishes, highly bloody lanes, to a very wide open map, and it seems like no one on ROCCAT wants to risk going in for those 1v1s. Not against the Fizz.
It is a big risk to take. So normally when the game does quiet down, I like to sing to myself, personally. Eye of the Tiger is a popular one, but for the time being, ROCCAT, they're just looking to try and control the top half of the jungle. You can see again, Baron being the main point of contention. Both teams, they're very aware of how dangerous this objective is. ROCCAT, given that they have the push up top side, given that they have Kalista clearing out the waves in the mid, has enabled them to light up this river and potentially rush it down. The thing you have to be careful of is if they start the Baron, G2 have a very swift way to collapse down onto ROCCAT and win a quick fight, which then can transition into a Baron for them. So ROCCAT, for now, they're just buying time. They're being patient. They're waiting for G2 to either overstep or look to try and catch G2 out of position, or in fact, they might just start it.
They have looked to. Now the TP is coming out. Maybe ROCCAT are just hoping to bait this. Wadid now pulled to safety. Expect now on the backside. Honeyfruit picked up to buy a little bit of health. Into the pinch goes the fish, but Maxlore goes over the wall. Smoke Screen comes down. Expect has he? No! Expect does manage to make it out to safety, but suddenly it's PerkZ on the backside. He doesn't have enough damage, or does he? Heal comes in. Betsy gets Expect in the end. Trick now running for his life. Hjarnan gets taken down by Zven. Sniper on the backside. No! Through the resonating strike. Down goes another one. PerkZ. It's a bloody fight, but most members are still alive so far. Just the 2-for-1 in favor of ROCCAT, but PerkZ wants to keep the fight going. Zven wants to keep it going as well. Snare not going to connect. Both teams backing off. No Baron for either side. PerkZ hungry for more. Goes in. CC chain goes down. PerkZ knocked out. Zven potentially next. Tries to slow them up, but there's no Iceborne Gauntlet. He's got the movement speed for himself. Can he save Mithy as well? They have to play smart. They have to play safe. They're not going to give Zven the chance for his montage moment.
Wow. ROCCAT, they are able to find the fight that they want, but perhaps not in the ideal setup that they could have had. Expect gets a really good fish, forcing ROCCAT into this choke point, and you think that things are going to end in disaster. But as the replay comes up, just keep your eyes on what Betsy is doing. throughout the entire fight, because he is the main reason as to why ROCCAT are able to swing things in their favor. Look at his positioning, right? So you can see the Betsy for the time being. He's just going to move into this bush. There's no vision. He moves up straight onto the front line. This immediately forces Zven and Mithy back, turning this into a 5 versus 3 because Betsy's just dealing with 3 members by himself. PerkZ does a lot of work on the backside, but it's just too late because Expector's taking all this damage, Trick takes all the damage, and now Hjarnan.
Oh, Hjarnan's taking way too much damage. Wadid tries to save the day. Playful Trickster over the wall. So Expect doesn't want to risk getting cut out. There's the Ezreal ult. Oh, down he goes. Zven once again snipes a kill onto Hjarnan.
That is a kill that G2 desperately need because now they can set their eyes on the Baron. With one of the main damage dealers of ROCCAT gone, they're in a very fruitful position to either reclaim vision, either just start the objective themselves.
And after that fight, Executioner's calling pickups for Zven, so no longer is Swain the unkillable nightmare. Much easier to deal with here, and PerkZ waiting for a chance. Poke out to shut down to maybe find a pick. Fail on the combo comes in from Wadid. They're not going to get anything else. G2 still focused on the Baron, still hoping to bait the fight. Know that they have the man advantage. Phaxi, have you strayed too far? Moving forward. Out goes the depth charge. Will connect with Zven in the end. Phaxi still on the front lines. Betsy looking to keep more rolling. The clone blocks a bit of damage, and PerkZ all alone on the backside, but it's Trick who goes down. Now it's ROCCAT moving forward. Betsy trying to find something. G2 are weaving in and out of the fight, but their blows cannot find purchase against the armor of ROCCAT.
And it is at this point in the game that ROCCAT's composition can really excel in these team fights. Phaxi soaked up so much damage at the start of the fight. He is the reason why ROCCAT could reposition to allow Betsy to then just start wailing away onto the side of G2. Such good team fighting power and such good team fighting overall from the side of ROCCAT that results in not them losing a Baron even with their AD carry dead.
2 seconds left on Trick. Hjarnan and the rest of ROCCAT just going to start this one right back up. They see an arena. They want to force the fight. Hjarnan takes a ton of damage from Zven over the wall. His healing mitigated as well. Zven waiting on the ultimate. 6K dropping lower. PerkZ along the backside. Hjarnan a little too close to that wall, but he's going to walk his way out to safety. They're trying to take out the Kalista, but the Baron, who's going to get it? It's ROCCAT in the end. Expecting the pit. He drops as well. Hjarnan is still alive. PerkZ wants to kill him, but they haven't taken him out yet. Play to the rookie. He's still alive. Mithy can't get in. Hjarnan is going off. And Zven, he's next on the list. He's going to get taken down. Shut down for Wadid. He slaps the ground. Slaps the dreams of G2.
And ROCCAT, they've just gotten themselves a Baron, they've just won themselves a team fight, and now they have clawed a gold lead over the reigning leaders in Europe. 10 kills to 7, 3,000 gold in their favor. Could this be the end of the undefeated streak for G2?
They continue to push forward, more time left. Baron buff empowers them, the inhibitor stands in their sights. They may just take it down, but will they continue the push? Will they continue the fight? PerkZ still aggressive, still fearless, unconcerned with the advantage the enemy team has. Expect taking a lot of damage here. Playful. They're not gonna come through! Expect, what are you doing? 40 seconds left. ROCCAT moving for more. Betsy on the top side.
This is huge, the Baron.
This is the moment.
Available.
They're pushing for more. 1 inhibitor down. G2 may be able to handle, but can they handle 2? 27 seconds left on Expect. It will take a miraculous team fight from the side of G2 against a Baron up ROCCAT, but Trick gets caught out. Wadid changes the CC. PerkZ leaps in and leaps right back out, and it's Trick who gets dunked down. Betsy now on a rampage. ROCCAT find the second inhibitor. Will they look to make it 3? What else can they find here? Flash forward from Hjarnan. He's looking for a little bit more. ROCCAT doing their best, but Zven still dishing out damage, still holding on to hope. He still has the undefeated season in his sight. Wadid! The man, the myth, the legend, the playmaker, ROCCAT! Will they be? It was not Unicorns 11, it was not H2K, it was not Misfits or Fnatic. It is ROCCAT who will prove that gods can bleed!
ROCCAT have done it! They stop the undefeated streak for G2. They keep their playoff hopes alive. Ladies and gentlemen, ROCCAT who won the series.
An insane performance, the confidence, the execution in the team fights. ROCCAT can be proud. And we spoke about it during the series, but now the challenge has been issued. Fnatic, will you take down Misfits? Or will ROCCAT take your place in the spring playoffs?
Unbelievable from ROCCAT. Everything went well for them. The great bottom lane into such good team fighting. It was so even for so long. It almost felt like G2 was scared. It didn't feel like the same sort of dominant powerhouse that they were in the first 2 games. But that's it. We go back to the same group. ROCCAT, they've beaten every single team in their group. It's unbelievable.
I don't know what to say. What a fantastic performance from this team. What a comeback story. Rocky ain't got shit on this, Vedius. Oh my God. What a comeback.
I mean, you called it in game 1. You said that highlight reel was coming.
I thought it was 50 minutes in that game. I didn't think it was the series, Vedius. This is an insane turn of events.
It's just, when you really think about what they've done, like, they were expected to go into relegation.
And
they didn't have a series win, and then they defeated Origin. They defeated Vitality. They came back to Group A, it was Giants. Then they took the surprising upset off Fnatic. Then they 2-0'd Misfits, and everyone still thought, no, there's no way they can upset G2. But they do it, and they stop the undefeated streak of the split.
February 18th, 2016 was the last time that G2 eSports lost a series in the European LCS.
And ROCCAT were the team to give it to them.
And April 1st, 2017, not a great date for this, coincidentally.
Because no one will believe us now. If we tell them, ROCCAT beat G2 on April 1st, like,
They did it, though.
They did
it. I mean, G2 will look back at that one, and we can talk about their goal to improve, and yeah, they'll learn a lot, but ROCCAT get to look back on that series with pride. And we talked about momentum for this team, and they have to be feeling good. And if Fnatic lose and they make their way into playoffs, there's like momentum, and then there's beating G2 momentum. And then there's everyone watches every one of your games meticulously now because you took down the Kings of Europe when they prep for you in playoffs.
Yep. And remember that it is not up now to ROCCAT to secure their playoff spot. This is what they needed to do to have a chance, but it is now actually in the hands of Fnatic. Fnatic decide whether Fnatic go into playoffs or whether ROCCAT go into playoffs. And that series versus Misfits is going to be huge. Absolutely monumental. What a way. It is a final game of the split too. It is a final game.
At a loss for words.
We could not have written the script better. I mean, everything is going to plan.
Vedius, don't diminish. Someone will believe you and be like, oh yeah, of course, that's why it happened. This is insane. Congratulations to ROCCAT. We can't say enough.
Congratulations.
The win moment there on your
screen. Look at them, they're so excited.
Look, the thing that makes me so happy about the way that they won is look at the way that they played so well together in those final fights. The consistent, like, Fizz is unkillable, right? You can never lock it down. You can never escape.
And Hjarnan's like, I'm really excited, guys, but my shoe! I need my shoe to enjoy this moment.
But Fizz should never die, right? I mean, he's unkillable. If you pick the right fight, he never goes down. But the perfect chain CC. Thought he got a get-out-of-jail-free card with the Playful Trickster. He never got to cast it.
And you have to wonder, like, Ignite versus Flash. Like, you can have that debate. Because if he'd had the Flash in a few of the later game fights, could that have been the different maker? Like, it's...
But should it have ever come down to that?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, because...
When you're G2, should you have ever given up opportunities? Should you have ever misplayed a fight or picked a fight maybe when you didn't have the composition?
And should they have put so much emphasis on getting an early game lead? Because their bottom lane was reliant on having the early 2 versus 2 push. Their mid laner was reliant on being able to roam to all these side lanes and snowball the game in their favor. And there was a lot of expectation, especially on the Lee Sin. Trick went 0-4-2 that game on Lee Sin.
Well, and it's crazy because when he stopped playing it, right? He's only played 3 games now of Lee Sin this season. He's 2-1. I just assumed it was because they wanted to diversify the pool. I never would have thought that, you know, like it might not be his best pick because it was so good for him in the past. But the Graves coming back made sense. It's a great pick. It's a pick that won them so much of the previous year. However, here in this game, the Lee Sin, we expect playmakers we've seen in the hands of Kakao single-handedly carry early games, dictate fights, and here it didn't work.
No, it did not. And again, props to ROCCAT. That 2v2 play down in the bottom lane is really what swung everything in their favor. Maxlore took a bit of a gamble with the gank, but...
I mean, Wadid took a bit of a gamble. That whole bot lane was insanely aggressive.
Yeah.
You die in that bottom lane as Kalista, Alistar, and you're down. You're done.
Yeah.
You go back to that 40 CS deficit that you've lived in for the last 2 games of the series. And suddenly they turn it around. They find a CS lead. And of course, Zven, props to him. He stays even despite suddenly being very behind in a matchup. That's his strength. He does his best to outplay in those team fights, but it's not enough.
And that was the first time that Betsy got his hands on his fabled Swain, a champion that he's still bringing out in the regular season after the relentless nerfs that it's had, after it's not really considered a meta pick. It's been banned throughout the series. They finally give it to him in Game 3, and he did so much in so many of those team fights. Just nothing but praise for the ROCCAT lineup because they really stepped up and they were able to take the win over G2.
Just absolutely crazy. We'll take a chance. I'm going to take a chance. I got the client here. We'll look at the damage numbers. Now, it's a short game, so they're not insane. But Swain, very clearly the damage leader, only behind Zven's Ezreal.
Oh. Wow, yeah.
So that's rough. When you're Zven, I mean, you dish out so much damage, you have so much poke, you fight so well. We saw in one of those team fights, the vast majority of the damage was coming from Zven, but it feels like G2, while they were able to weave in and out for so many of those fights and kind of poke at ROCCAT, when it came to that mid game and they weren't able to confirm those kills, it just started to fall apart because they realized, hey, we just burned our cooldowns, we don't have anybody dead, and that's a Swain who's going to heal back to full. That's a Kalista with a Blade of the Rune King who's going to heal back to full. Blade of the Rune King Hurricane, so much lifesteal. It feels like an impossible task once you're that far behind.
What I think we did see was really good team fighting from ROCCAT and nothing but praise. That's a 6-series win streak that they can end the split happy on.
Have to end happy. Well, ROCCAT have done what no other team in Europe could do for the past 13 months. There's nothing left to do here but load in to the post-game lobby.